Hello and welcome back to Con with John. Right now, I've made some moves with Illinois in the meantime. I logged on not too long after the first episode ended. Let's go look at and see what I'm working on building in my build queue. Okay, those are my rare supply city arms industries. And I researched that I'm building mobile anti-air vehicles and also combat vehicles. Mobile anti-air vehicles are quite valuable, and in a future episode, I'll discuss them more in detail. In the meantime, I have a big stack of 7 units here in Champaign. I put a stack of 7 units, yep, in Rockford, and I'm going for the two close by cities, neutral cities. And Michigan actually made a move into one province of Wisconsin and has done nothing since then. It looks like I'll have no competition going for Indianapolis in the whole Indiana state nation. I looked around at various nations and what they're building, and the things that stand out is you have Michigan building a naval base. So he's somewhat aggressive, and we'll see where this leads, although it's a very good chance that his naval units will be going east, or at least I sure hope so. North Carolina's made some moves. Here in South Carolina, he's gotten all but the capital. And Chihuahua looks like Chihuahua's doing some pretty good stuff here. He's taken Mexicali already. He's threatening California from the south, and I expect him to take Baja California along the way as well. And it looks like he's also moving south into Central America. So he's working pretty hard right now. In the meantime, let's see, what else is there to say about this game? That really is about it. Let's look at the coalitions. There's two of them. There's Chihuahua is in one, and North Carolina is in another. And so basically the two active people are looking for people to join their coalitions, so far to no avail. And most likely I'll be joining one or the other or teaming up with Michigan, depending on, well, we'll see over the next day. Probably I'll be in a coalition by tomorrow. That's really about all there is to say about this game right now. It's going reasonably smoothly, and we'll see. Now I'm going to talk about my 5-city nation. For 5-city nations, you don't, just pick pretty much any nation, and those are the last ones picked usually. So I found this one that has 25 out of 32, which is not good if you want a 6 or 7 city nation, which is most of the time. But for a 5-city nation, it works just fine, or should. So let's see what's available. Iowa's available. Iowa's actually the one I kind of wanted. Iowa's one of the states nations I've played more than any other, and it's pretty nice. I'll be going with the chopper strategy here. It's going to be basically all air all the time. So basically, well, I'm right next to Illinois, as we talked about before, and in this case, Davenport is, from an Illinois standpoint, is my threat to him. While Davenport is also my most vulnerable city to him, so that's going to be a standard bone of contention between the two nations. And then Sioux City leads over here into Lincoln, which is a good place to try to get a neutral city that's easy to get. And Pierre is also another good choice up here in South Dakota. Let me go back to the Illinois game for a second. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, I got too many games going. Here we go. This is what all the neutral states start in a BOS game. 1 National Guard, level 1. So it's 1 unit, and it's not high and it's not fully healed up. It's only 2/3 healed. So you don't need to have as big a force to take it as you would for in a higher level game. So I talked about rare supplies being a peak. I noticed number of starting resources, 13 instead, 10 instead of like 19 and 13 or something like that. Fuel is about the same. Electronics is a little bit smaller. That is smaller, less rare supplies, and the money seems like it's also less. So the initial conditions are less. 54 and 61. Those are nowhere near as much in components, like in production rather. It's like, I believe it's half as much, but I'll go into details of that for next video. So, and also, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 2, 10 infantry instead of 14 infantry to go along with my 2 recon vehicles. So it's also 4 less units. So the power differential between a 7-city nation and a 5-city nation is pretty large. So I'm not going to be building the recon vehicle build because I don't have I'll run out of resources too soon. And it's bad enough for Illinois with my lack of defense, although I'm putting up a good offense with it. But with Iowa, I'll be going more for a little bit slower build. The one thing that still applies is, let's go. Well, there's these cheap resources here that's good in the market. So 4.7 is low. It's only 6, but still, need all you can get. 6.2 is standard price for supplies. Let's go get the components. Okay, we'll take the cheapies, all 12 of them, and I will buy 1 round. And the 13.4 is also a higher price. So it looks like they're socking it to 5-city nations every way possible. And you come over here, and there's the cheap fuel, a few of them, and no cheap electronics. Okay, so I have my start here, and now when I go to research, it's going to be motorized infantry. I'm sorry, I'm going with air, so I'm going to go with just National Guards. My infantry are not going to be attacking. All they need to do is take territory and fight rogues, garrison cities. So I'm going to go with National Guard and mobile anti-air. Mobile anti-air is something that's just, at some point, you're going to run into air units. People with air forces need to have something to combat it, and mobile anti-air does a adequate job. And it's also a mediocre ground unit to boot, but the fact that it's an armor unit that makes it useful in ways, and I'll talk about those details in a later video. I do want to get Pierre because it gives me a little bit of, it gives me a little buffer, and also I like the fact that it's a rare supply city. So this guy's going to Sioux City. He'll be there in 3 hours, and I will be logging on in 3 hours to move him. Being active like that is very, very helpful and very, very powerful. And I also want to get Lincoln, so I'm going to go for these as well. And I'm even going to send these 2 to help in the taking over of Nebraska. I want to get as much of Nebraska and South Dakota as I can. And that means I have to start building up some defenses because, well, I don't have a whole lot. I'm sending all but 2 of my infantry units, and that's going to have to support defend against Illinois. Okay, now in general, I wouldn't build an underground bunker to start. Well, first let's deal with first things first. Rare supplies. Okay, so there's my rare supply build up. Now the question is, how many cities do I want to have building National Guards? And the answer is, well, pretty much all the rest. So that's a recruitment office here, and a recruitment office here, and a recruitment office definitely here. And let me see, we got one more city that doesn't have a, okay, no, that's the other one. Okay, so he's going to be building air units, and I already started him without, I should have built a recruiting office to begin with there, so that was a mistake. Okay, so I need to have one city that's going to be for Army base. I need the Army base for, oops, I don't want that there first. First I want to have arms industry, and then I'll have the Army base because mobilized infantry requires Army base, arms industry rather. Okay, so here after I get the recruitment office, I want to have underground bunkers for defense, and it also improves my morale, which will increase production as well. And then I'll finally build the arms industry. Okay, so I already got here is the arms industry. Second one, the first one for each city. This is my air city, so arms industry it is. Sioux City is going to be not Army base, just arms industry. Okay, so that's my buildings for now. I have my research for now, and they both will take a half hour. So I'll be on for half an hour because I'm going to want to do, let's see, research. When can I do? I can't do the helicopters until day 2 anyway, so there's no need to do research. I need to be on in 3 hours to move my units out to take over the neutral cities. Okay. In this game, I'm building a little bit smaller of a ground force, so I don't have to spend quite as many units, as many resources on my army. So this, I'm going to need to have more electronics. So I'm going to build a local industry. Local industry basically gives you, it doubles your resource production for level 1. I used to do level 3 in the past, but now I don't have enough resources to quite do that. There was a time when resources were a lot more prevalent in this game. And the problem with this one is it's too close to Minnesota, so this is too vulnerable, so I'll pass on that one as much as I'd like to have one for my fuel. And the last thing to do, or is there anything more to do at this point? Oh, let me check coalitions. And there's one, and it's Idaho. So he's pretty far away. I'll look at that a little bit later. Let's keep him there. And the research, what I'm basically going to do is have a helicopter force. It's going to be, okay, let's look at helicopters a little bit. This is our helicopter gunship. Before I said these were anti-infantry choppers because here's infantry, 7 damage to infantry and only 2 to armor. And on the other hand, this is your anti-armor chopper because it's 8.5 to choppers and 2.5 to infantry. And then if you look at officers, okay, right now I have a high level, so I can build all the officers. I mean, sure, I got to get the right level and meet my requirements, but I'm not level restricted. So what I'll do in this game is I'm going to build up to level 3 with my rotary wing officer, and then the officer is powerful. It's very useful. One big thing is if you have an anti-infantry stack of choppers, it doesn't do much damage against armor. It's almost useless against armor. Whereas here you add 9 to armor, so you can actually kill, for example, if you have a recon unit vehicle with a bunch of armor, this will take out the armor units pretty nicely. And then the other standard, 11 against armor. If you have an anti-armor stack, it'll give you 9 against infantry, so that's powerful in that way. And then you get the standard bonuses. You get your attack is increased by 15%, more damage, and your speed is 10% faster for helicopters. Helicopters are slow. That's quite helpful. So I would highly recommend getting rotary wings and officers and move them up as much as you can. I'll move them up to level 3 because I'm going to mimic the fact that it's, this is more for people that don't have a huge level, so they won't be able to get higher level ones. I don't know what the limit is at that point, but if you get even to level 3, then you're talking about a 25% attack advantage, and 11 and 13 is the infantry and armor ratings. On the other hand, a level 1 officer all by itself is a nice unit, and I highly recommend it if you're building choppers at all. Okay, that's it for this piece of it.